Today I'm in the beautiful city of Perth on the banks of the Tay, Scotland's longest river. This was the nation's capital before Edinburgh took the crown, and it's also steeped in Christian history. Welcome to Songs of Praise. In today's programme, I explore the stunning Scone Palace and find out more about its pivotal role in Scotland's religious history.
This is where all the Scottish kings were anointed and then crowned.
We celebrate 175 years of the Free Church of Scotland and discover the remarkable story of how its founding inspired early photography. And J.B. Gill makes a splash as he meets a minister who finds peace on the River Tay.
Jesus describes himself as a living water. That means he's not static, he's moving, he's dynamic.
I first came to Perthshire when I was a student 20 miles away in Dundee, and like any visitor, I was immediately struck by the rugged beauty of the surroundings. But this region is much more than just dramatic landscapes. It has also witnessed some of the most important events in the history of Scotland. Its position at the natural crossing point of the River Tay made Perth a vital junction between Edinburgh and Glasgow to the south and the Highlands to the north. And in the Middle Ages, it became in effect the nation's capital. Much of our music comes from here, Perth Cathedral, St Ninians, and we begin with a hymn written by George Herbert 400 years ago that sounds just as vibrant today. Let all the world in every corner sing. Just outside Perth, the magnificent Scone Palace is now one of the foremost visitor attractions in the area and a major event space. On Friday, it welcomed part of the BBC's biggest weekend music festival. But in years gone by, this was one of the most significant places in Scotland. I'm meeting Lady Mansfield to find out more.
This is the Long Gallery, which is the room that Charles II would have walked along in order to go out to his coronation on the Moot Hill. My husband's family have lived here for 410 years.
Just the 410?
Yes, just that.
So was this always a family home, Lady Mansfield?
So most certainly not. I mean, 1500 years ago, it was a centre of the ancient Celtic church. But then in the 7th century, followers of St. Columba arrived and they set up a monastery here. And then at about 500 years after that, in the 12th century, they amalgamated with the Canons Regular of St. Augustine. And by this time, there was a large abbey building here, as well as the Moot Hill, where all the kings of Scotland were crowned. But it was also where they held their parliaments. And I like to say to people that you really have to look at Scone as being the equivalent to Westminster Abbey and Palace in London. It served both roles. It really was the centre of government and the religious centre as well. Here we are on the Moot Hill, which is our most sacred sort of site here at Scone. And this is where all the Scottish kings were anointed and then crowned. And here we have a replica of the Stone of Scone, the Stone of Destiny, which they would have sat on for their crownings.
And being anointed here, that was a very religious act.
Absolutely. Babies are anointed when they're christened.
Who else would have been anointed on this stone?
All the famous kings that you remember from Scottish history, like Robert the Bruce, who was crowned here twice, but that's another story. Macbeth, Kenneth MacAlpine, every single king.
So a hugely significant place in terms of Scottish history.
Massively significant. I mean, Robert the Bruce, he had to get here to be crowned. If you weren't crowned at Scone, it really wasn't the real deal.
Living in Scone must have had a huge impact on you in terms of your life and your faith as well.
Yes, I mean, we live and breathe looking after this tremendous historic site. I mean, there was an abbey all over the grounds. Every day we look out on this wonderful Moot Hill with its little chapel behind. As a Christian, it's a real privilege to be the custodian of this wonderful historic religious site.